Hey, this is Dave Nalette. I'm so glad that you're interested in our Seeing Jesus More Clearly Bible studies. There is always something good going on here. If you want to learn more about the ministry, you can do so going to our website, bygraceinternational.com, and maybe you want to support what we're doing financially. If you'd like to be a part of that, you can go there as well, bygraceinternational.com/give. Thanks. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another week of Seeing Jesus More Clearly. My name is Dave Nalette. I'm so glad you decided to join us today. We are getting close to the end of a series here, looking at the character of God, right? And we read the other week that in the book of Hebrews, where it talks about Jesus is the visible image of the invisible God, the actual the God's purest revelation, manifestation to all of humanity, right? That everything we see, we know about God is exemplified in Jesus. Yet we don't always see this line up in the scriptures. We don't see this through the Old Testament. We don't see this through the New Testament, particularly the book of Revelation. And so we've been on this journey here, and we are getting close to the end of going through the letters to the 7 churches in the book of Revelation. And this week we are on the city of Philadelphia. Now, if you know me, you know I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan. And, I do not care for the city of Philadelphia, the Eagles. If you live there, I love you, but maybe pick a better sports team, right? There's one that, wears blue. All good guys wear blue, right? And, have the star on the side of their helmets there, but no, anyways, just messing with you. But the Church of Philadelphia, and I think that you'll see here that Jesus is again, if we look at the letter, if we look at the audience to whom this was written, once again we'll see that Jesus is who we see in the Gospels. He's the same Jesus full of love. He's the same Jesus full of grace, full of compassion, full of mercy. So Revelation 3:7, I'm reading out of the NRSV, and you can pick whatever Bible you want to read along with here. Revelation 3:7, to the angel, remember we said this is the pastor of the church in Philadelphia, right? These are the words of the Holy One, the true one, who has the key of David, who opens and no one will shut, or who opens doors that no one will shut, who shuts and no one opens. Verse 8, I know your works. Look, I've set before you an open door that no one's able to shut. I know that you have but little power, yet you've kept my word and you've not denied your name. Verse 9, or not denied my name. Verse 9, I will make those of the synagogue of Satan who say they're Jews and are not, but are lying. I will make them come and bow before your feet, and they'll learn that I've loved you. Because you've kept my word of endurance, I'll keep you from the hour of trial that's coming to the whole world to test the inhabitants of the earth. I'm coming soon. Hold fast to what you have so that no one takes away your crown. Verse 12, if you conquer, I will make you a pillar in the temple of my God. You'll never go out of it. I'll write you on the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, the new Jerusalem that comes down from my God out of heaven in my own new name. Verse 13, let anyone who has an ear listen to what the Spirit is saying to the churches. So, Philadelphia, not Pennsylvania, right? This is over in the area that we'd refer to as Jordan these days. This is the, if you recall in the Old Testament, there was a people there known as the Ammonites, right? And they had a capital city known as Ammon or Ammon, or I'm not sure exactly how to say it. This was that city. And, it's actually, since this time period, it's reclaimed that name there. It's Ammon, Jordan. And this was the capital of the Ammonites. It was first conquered by the Greeks and then by Rome once Greece was conquered. And this was used to spread the Greek language and culture throughout, much of what was considered the world at the time, the known world. So this is who they are, right? This is the city of brotherly love. This is when they're talking about it, they say the city of brotherly love. It's not Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, as much as I like the cheesesteaks, right? It's talking about this city over in the area we know as Jordan. Now, let's look at this here in a little more detail and try to see what Jesus is saying here to us, or to this church, to the angel or to the pastor of the church in Philadelphia, right? These are the words of the Holy One, the true one, who has the key of David, and no one will shut, who shuts and no one opens. This seems a little blind to us, right? The words of the Holy One. So this is important. This is a church largely of Jewish descent. If you recall world geography, Jordan is in relatively close proximity to Israel. And so once, they had been conquered and all of that, it wasn't a big deal for Jewish people to migrate over there and so on and so forth. So you have a church with a lot of Jewish people. There's Jewish ethnicity, history, things like this. And they were familiar with God's character. So when Jesus is referring to himself as the Holy One, he's making an appeal to the nature of God that this church is familiar with throughout the Old Testament. He's utilizing language, utilizing customs, words, phrasing, so on and so forth, that they're used to, that they're comfortable with, to relay his message. I am the Holy One. The God that you knew, that your ancestors knew and worshiped, that's me, right? That's who Jesus is. And he's, we know that Jesus is the ultimate revelation of God to humanity, that God looks like Jesus. I shared a post the other week on social media that I'm not trying to sit and justify things anymore on the basis of whether or not they're biblical. My question is, are those things Christ-like? Because Christ is the ultimate revelation of God. Now, this is a little odd to us here. The one who has the key of David. The key of David. What is he referring to here? This is a parallel over to the 22nd chapter of the book of Isaiah. There was a key referred to as the key of David in this passage, in the castle, the kingly dwelling there, and we see it referred to in Isaiah 22. Now there was a man named Eliakim in the day of Hezekiah, when Hezekiah was king, and this servant wore this key. Now, this was, you want to talk about a master key? This was the master key to end all master keys for the palace. It was the key that would open any door, and it would open. There were only doors that could be opened by this key, and there were only doors that could be shut by this key. And Eliakim, he is the one who wore this key on his shoulder. He was called by God. Now, this audience would have been familiar with this text. They would have been familiar with the 22nd chapter of Isaiah. They would have known the story of Eliakim and the key of David, that this was his responsibility. And so Jesus is again drawing a parallel to their past, that of the man who could open the doors in the palace where the king dwelled. I am that man. I am that being. Let's look over and read it. Isaiah 22:22 in the New American Standard. It says, "Then I'll put the key of the house of David on his shoulder," referring to Eliakim. But we also see the biblical narrator. This is something that I've heard Pete Enns and a few other scholars talk about. That in the New Testament, you see a lot of times that the writers of these texts are taking something that was there and they're reinterpreting the existing text. So this is not specifically a prophecy about Jesus. This is talking about Eliakim, if you read this in context. Yet John, through Jesus, we believe as Christians, right, is taking this and reinterpreting this event that occurred that was simply a historical fact to them, and reinterpreting this to be a prophecy about Jesus. I'll put the key of the house of David on his shoulders. When he opens, no one will shut, and when he shuts, no one will open. He's the one in control. He's got the keys to it all. He can open the door. He can shut the door. When he closes it, no one can close it. When he opens it, no one can, or when he closes it, no one can open it. When he opens it, no one can close it. And the good news is for you and me, Jesus has opened the door. Jesus has opened the door for us to access the presence of God through him. This is good news for us. So verse 8, he says, "I know your works. Look, I've set before you an open door and no one's able to shut it. I know you have but little power, yet you've kept my word and you've not denied my name." So this is important to note. He says, I've set before you an open door and no one is able to shut it. Jesus is in control of the door. It's not people. It's not humans. Jesus is the one who opens the door. We say, well, those people can't be saved. Those people can't come in church. Jesus is the one who opens the dang door. And if Jesus is the one who opens the door, what business do we have trying to shut it? What business do we have trying to say, no, we just got to close? No. Jesus is the one who opens the door. I've set before you an open door, and no one is able to shut it. And he says, I know you have but little power. The city of Philadelphia was not a well-off city. They didn't have a ton of resources. They didn't have, they weren't the most well-to-do city in the East at this time. They weren't. They didn't have a lot of money. They didn't have the money of some of these other churches. They didn't have the political power, the socioeconomic power, any of these things. But Jesus is saying, I know that you don't have any of this, this power, but I can still use you. God can still use them. You've kept my word. You've believed in me, is what Jesus is saying. You've believed in me, and you've not denied my name. So evidently, they've had a test that's come their way. They've endured a test where they had the opportunity to turn their back on Jesus and to walk away from it all, and they stood strong through it. So you went through some stuff, but you haven't turned your back on me. You have not denied my name. Verse 9, he says, I will make those of the synagogue of Satan who say they're Jews and they're not, but are lying. I'll make them come down and bow before your feet, and they'll learn that I've loved you. Now, we need to be careful here, again, because we came across this language a couple letters ago, if you recall. And this is the type of language that has been used to weaponize Scripture, to turn it into an anti-Semitic book and to justify racism and all sorts of horrible things in the name of God. And that's simply not what the Scripture teaches. This isn't... Jesus would... Can you imagine Jesus? I mean, Jesus was Jewish. Could you imagine him being anti-Semitic? So why would we use the Scripture to justify these kinds of things? Anyways, but we need to be careful in this. The synagogue of Satan, those who say they're Jews and are not, what is he referring to? He's referring to people who say they're religious. They claim to be religious elites. They claim to be people who are in the faith, and yet they walk lives of hate and slander. They live lives where they hate their brothers and sisters. They hate other people around them. They hate the people they come in contact with. These bleepity bleep Greeks, and these bleepity bleep Ammonites, and these bleepity bleep Persians and Syrians and Samaritans and all this, whatever. That's what he's saying here. They're the religious elites who hate and slander. Jesus referred to the Pharisees, right, as a brood of vipers. If you want to take the language connection further, Jesus is essentially saying, you offspring of an animal, you SOB, like this is the kind of language Jesus has reserved for those kinds of people. So there are people like this in their midst, people who claim to be following Christ, people who claim to be following, Judaism and things like this, but their actions tell otherwise. They reject the foreigner. They don't hold space for the marginalized, the oppressed in society. They don't attempt to alleviate the suffering of those around them. Those are the ones who Jesus would recognize as truly Jewish in Judaism. This is what the Torah teaches. This is what the Old Testament teaches. This is what the New Testament teaches. To pure religion, right? Remember, James writes about that. Pure religion is the care for the widows and the orphans, and the Bible talks about welcoming the stranger into our midst, the alien into our midst. And we're so concerned in America, and I'm on a tangent, but forgive me, but we're so concerned in America about my right to do this and that and the other that we miss the point entirely. That puts us in a category no better than these religious elites, part of the synagogue of Satan. That's what he's referring to here. They're not exemplifying a godlike life of love. But he does say this, I'll make them come and bow before your feet, and they'll learn that I'll love you. They'll be won over. They're going to come and they're going to bow at your feet there. They're going to bow, and not in worship of you, But they're going to learn that I've loved you, and that love is going to win them over. A few other translations paint that out more clearly, and we're not going to go into it for time's sake. But this is the idea that Jesus is saying, that they haven't believed yet, but they will. You know, they'll be along for the ride. They will believe. They'll see soon enough. You know, I'm reminded of that scene in The Office. If you like that show, there, you know, Kevin, he decides that he's gonna, you know, start using less words because, you know, him and his mechanic, they don't need a lot of words to communicate, and you know, he starts just like abbreviating things like nonsensically, and you know, save time. Why say a lot words when few words do trick? And you know, he goes into this whole thing, and you know, they're like, Kevin, no, you can't do this. We've got a language code. We've got all these other things, and finally Kevin he relents and he gives in. And Jesus is saying that they're not seeing it now, but they will be won by my love. Verse 10, because you've kept my word of endurance. Remember, they'd gone through a trial. You know, I'll keep you from the hour of trial coming on the whole world and test the inhabitants of the world. Now, it's very important that we read this and we don't endeavor to slip back into do this and that'll occur thinking or theology or thought processes or whatever the case might be. We don't want to allow that to come. There's a trial coming. Trouble's on the way, but I'm protecting you. Jesus is protecting them is the point he's getting at. There is trouble on the way. There is, you know, a storm brewing on the horizon, but Jesus is saying, I have got this down. I have got it under control, and if you're liking this video, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. I've got this under control. You're being protected. And it's important to note, he says, coming on the whole world, to the writer of this book here, this is referring to the known earth. So largely, you know, the northern parts there in Africa and the Middle East and southern Europe and things like that, that was largely considered the world. The Roman Empire that they were under is the world at that time. This is their world, right? You know, this is the world that they lived in. And so there's trouble coming to the world, the known earth. But verse 11, I'm coming soon. Hold fast to what you have so no one takes away your crown. I'm coming soon. Jesus is on the way, so hold on to me. Jesus is saying, hold on to me with everything you got. Hold on with everything you have because I'm on the way so that no one takes away your crown. What is the crown? The crown is the reward that Jesus promises, eternal life, the inheritance of life with him, the inheritance of us, you know, walking into that fullness that he's prescribed. This is the crown. It's not talking about a physical crown or riches here on the earth or anything like that, but simply hold on to me. Just keep holding on. And you'll get what I promised. It's coming. It's on the way. You will have it. I promise you that. You know, rest assured, you've got it. If you conquer, I'll make you a pillar in the temple of my God. You'll never go out of it. I'll write you on the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, the new Jerusalem that comes down from my God out of heaven in my own new name. So he says that if you conquer, that seems like interesting language. If you conquer. Why is he saying if you conquer? What is there to do with that? Do you need to do something to conquer? Must you play the game in a certain way and appease a certain, you know, whatever to conquer? No, not at all. Jesus isn't saying that. How do we conquer, right? Jesus is the conqueror. So since Jesus has conquered, we walk and receive his conquering. What he's done for us. Jesus has conquered and he's made us partakers of that conquering by virtue of the fact that he's conquered. And then he says this, he says, I'm going to make you a pillar. So not only are you receiving what Jesus has done to conquer, but at the same time, Jesus says, I will make you a pillar. You will be a strong support, a firm foundation in this temple, in this coming age, in this coming day, and you're never going to leave the temple. Not in a bad way, right? Not like a hostage situation here, no. He's saying you're never going to go out of it. You're never going to leave the temple because you're engrafted forever. Once you're in, right? You know, if you ever watch The Godfather, you know, you're part of the family. You know, you make him an offer. You know, so he's a part of the family here. You're never going to go out of it. And he says that I'm going to write God's name on you. Jesus has the keys, remember? So if we want that name written on us, who is going to be the one doing the writing? Jesus is going to make that name be written on us. He's going to be the one to write it on us. This is who Jesus is. This is what he does. He's not saying this is anything that we have to do. We have to go out and conquer the city. We have to go conquer the country and, no, friend. Not at all. Jesus isn't interested in this whatsoever. What Jesus is interested in is receiving what he's done. If he's already conquered for us, this is what he's referring to here. You conquer by receiving the conquering. Does that make sense? Are you with me? Verse 13, let anyone who has an ear hear what the Spirit is saying to the churches. And so, in conclusion here, Jesus is telling this church, yeah, you've been through some stuff. You've had some things go on. You really don't have the stature of some of these other places, but I've got your back. I'm going to open doors here for you. Nobody can close doors. The door of evangelism, of the gospel, is going to be wide open. Nobody's going to be able to shut it. I'm going to shut doors and nobody can open them. I've got your side. Just believe and trust and rest in what I've done and walk in it. And that is good news. I don't know about you. That's exciting to me. That's good news. And, we are out of time. So join us next week as we wrap this up with a letter to the Laodicean church. And we'll see you next week. God will do this for you. And if you do this, God's going to do that. And so on and so forth. And I don't know about you. I don't believe that's what the letter's saying. I don't believe that looks like Jesus